Welcome back to MYB, Mind Your Business podcast. And first and foremost, I'm going to welcome our esteemed guest, the reluctant accountant, for obvious reasons. She reluctantly fell into accountancy. How do you do that?
Well, my mum told me to get a real job, and this is the first one that accepted me, so that's why I'm here. But yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's a good space to be accepted into, right? Accountancy.
I mean, you say that, but it's not a conversation starter. Like if someone says like, "What do you do?" and you're like, "Oh, I work in music," and then I'm like, "Oh, I'm an accountant." They're like, "Oh, so about the music."
I guess it depends on what you're doing as an accountant, where you can kind of zhuzh it up a little bit.
You know what it is? I think that like what you think of accountants, that's really true. Like the perception that you have in your head when you think of an accountant, that's really true. I say that I went to, so obviously like I'm a member of an institute. So I went to this event that they had and I was like, you know what? I'm not like that. So maybe I'm prejudging. And I went there. Oh my God. First of all, that looked like Death's waiting room because everyone was like 105 and they were so bored. Like the conversations, I was falling asleep when people were talking. Yeah, like you know what, they may keep me out of the institute for this, but like honestly they need, and the thing is, because when I trained with other people that weren't necessarily like that, but it's just those people that stick with it. A lot of people move out of accounting, as I don't really work as an accountant per se now, but I think the people that stick with it, that love like, you know, balance sheets and all of that kind of stuff like that, they're like that for a reason. Yeah, glasses, cardigans, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's the vibe.
Yeah, cotton.
Yeah. Tweed, you know, that kind of vibes. Yeah. So
imagine tweed. I ain't seen a tweed. You know what it reminds me of? My old school teachers.
Yeah.
Tweed. I remember we used to have a teacher. He's probably dead now, so I can talk about this. But a guy called Mr. Hughes. Those who went to school with me would remember Mr. Hughes lobbing students over the tabletops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like
well, that sounds like Mr. Barber.
Yeah,
Mr. Barber used to make his own ice cream. And
that weren't Mr. Hughes.
You think that
sounds happy.
Yeah, it sounds happy and it's disarming, but it's like, you know, there's some like convicts who also like are botanists and tend to flowers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, samurais used to like squash like flowers and put them in like books and journals, but they still cut off your head and not feel away. And Mr. Barber used to do ice cream, but one time someone asked him too many questions about the ice cream. He used to just drapes kids. He was done a lot of drapes in.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, like, you know, when you see someone in drapes and they've been peanutted as well.
Yeah.
Give them a proper drapes.
I mean, the duality of man.
Yeah.
You know?
He dropped a plant plot on us once because we were taking too long to get to class. So he's one of them. He grabbed something and just improvised. Like that plant plot, I don't know if that was covered by, you know, him or anything like that, but I'm sure he would have made it. Yeah, one of the kids get to board it, but yeah.
Oh, you know, it's just a random fact. Trump has now signed into law that teachers can discipline children in schools.
I mean, but all of that
in a way that they couldn't.
To be fair, in America, violence has been in schools for a while, isn't it? I mean, like
it's the least violent thing
that's the least amount of violence that's in their schools at the moment.
I suppose it shouldn't be able to discipline the kids, but more so discipline people coming into the schools.
No,
that's
exactly.
a whole different story. Anyway, is there anything else you want to add about yourself that the viewers might find interesting?
I tried to do a back squat yesterday at the gym. Didn't go well. Just thought I'd mention that in case anyone cares.
Doing any back squatting lately?
Myself, don't even try to attempt it.
I did one, and I was like, let me sit my ass down. Like, this ain't going well.
Wow. Okay. So Z today is going to be speaking with us and answering some questions around the budget, how things within the budget, this year's budget, 25 and 26, will affect our community. And we'll be kind of delving into the impacts and how we can circumvent negative impacts.
Okay.
As far as our community is concerned.
Can I say, in terms of the community, I'm not afraid to say it. I do get confused by the budget. Because my awareness of the budget is that the Chancellor just comes out of number 10 with a red briefcase and basically says this is what he's going to do for
Rachel
Reeves. Yeah, so Rachel Reeves now.
Don't get that.
Chancellor.
First female Chancellor. So
yes, which
very
is
important.
Yeah, it is important. Yeah, because interested in what she has to work with. But for most people, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone understands how the budget necessarily works, but for me, I'd like to get like a kind of overview of it and what it is, constitutes the budget. Because, for example, if the budget is like kind of like, this is the pot we have to the year to allocate to various municipal services and resources and stuff, whether it's, and then what's left, and that's in relation to whatever's left is how you maybe cover the deficit or balance of payments. I'm not sure of the scale of it works.
So with the budget, I think it's just the same as anyone's budget. It's like the amount of money that you think that you have to run whatever. So it could be your household, it could be a business, and in this case it's the economy. And so obviously with Labour winning the last election, after a certain period of time, they're required to come forward with a budget and say like what they're going to spend money on. Now, because the Tories were in power for 14 years and did a whole heap of foolishness that we all saw, the economy was in a really bad position. And, you know, Liz Truss came and just crashed the economy in like 5 days.
Can I slow you down a little bit? Because just to kind of blast through a slight overview, when you say they came in and the Tories crashed or done...
Well, I'm saying that I think we've been through a lot of austerity that hasn't seen a lot of growth over those 14 years. So if you remember, and it's really funny because if you think about the rise of Corbyn when that was coming around, austerity was coming in. And I think a lot of people didn't really realise at the time. So Corbyn was obviously on the back benches and threw his hat into the ring because he was just like, well, it's his time. I think that's what it was. I don't think he was going forward as like a really serious candidate in the first instance. And when that divergence came, when he started to gain more popular support, was because he was the only person that didn't support austerity. So what Labour candidates were saying, we'll go for austerity light. We're like, we'll can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll fucking screw you over, but we won't do it as bad as what the Tories are going to do.
Loud as well.
My mum might watch. No, I'm joking. So he then like came and he was like, no, I don't agree with that. And he seemed to give a really viable alternative. So, and whether you thought that it could work or not, and a lot of people said it wouldn't work, and I feel like they wanted it to not work, but whether you thought it could work or not, it felt like a real choice, because a lot of the time when people go to the polls, they think, well, it's just kind of apples and oranges. It's not really a real difference. It's like, oh, do we get screwed quickly or do we get screwed slowly? And so he was offering a kind of real viable alternative. He was also tapping into a market that isn't often tapped into is people that don't vote. So it wasn't just about trying to convince like what the Tories are doing, trying to convince like reform voters to come and vote for them or whatever. He was like, no, there's a whole heap of people that don't vote because they're disenfranchised. I'm going to speak to them.
I think his brother really helps him to get that audience as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his brother's like, they've got his ears to the street.
Isn't he like a conspiracy theorist?
He's like an anti-vaxxer and he like led, he was leading like anti-lockdown protests.
Knowing that he had a brother.
People think that he's a radical socialist and communist, but Jeremy Corbyn's brother is on the thing. He's like, no government, bro. You can't trust them, boy. Chemtrails. He's got his ears to the street.
Bad man.
Yeah, basically.
So he was doing all that, and then he obviously had like grime for Corbyn. He was tapping in at the time. He had like Snapchat filters going on and whatever. So he was doing whatever, but there was
Glastonbury
also
sets and everything, boy. Glastonbury sets and everything.
Yeah, like he had everything going, and then what he had obviously was the Tories working against him. You also had a lot of mainstream media that were putting things up like, is Corbyn a communist or whatever, like foolishness like that. And then you would obviously there was the anti-Semitism thing where it was like, oh, he's such an anti-Semite, and then you also had Labour working against him. So Kier Starmer and whatever, the internal Labour, and that's like a real, like it's a documented fact. It's not me kind of tin hat in this. It was like they were working against him, actively working against him to get in power. And I think that's why a reason why a lot of people not only turned away from like Labour, but were like, well, you made us suffer for longer, because actually if we kind of galvanized behind him, maybe we could have got out of this Tory mess a lot quicker. So you had the Tories coming along, and then obviously they went through their kind of Shakespearean change of leaders every 5 seconds. It was, from what was it, Theresa May, and then it's Boris Johnson, and then it's this one, then it's Liz Truss, then like all of these kind of things.
That was a messy period.
It is a messy period, but it's also really bad for the economy because it doesn't promote stability within the markets, right? So you've got all these people that are supposed to be this bedrock of like conservatism and stability and everything, and they're just doing a foolishness because it's a grab for power.
It's like watching somebody be like, well, they're in the office now, so let's go and check. You go in there, they got a duffel bag, and they're like, what are you doing with all that money?
Exactly.
Because I'm just lots of things to pay for.
Yeah.
And it's quicker for me to do it in cash.
And you know, like these people, what was Liz Truss? Was she like 47 days she was prime minister for or something? And now she's going around doing like tours and, you know, like what bruv? First of all, you didn't pass your probation. You should be not that. You're not somebody to be going around doing tours about this.
She may have killed the Queen also.
Listen, she did kill. First of all, she was like, "There's not going to be two Lizzies in power at the same time." That's what she said. So she got into power.
She's saying it's the woke left is the reason why.
Yeah, but like this is what I'm saying, and even with that whole kind of thing with this like wokeism. First of all, please don't, because I don't like the way that white people have co-opted this word and use woke for everything. Just say black. Right? Yeah. Just say Negro.
Especially because she was a former Liberal Democrat, and she made Kwasi the Chancellor, innit?
Yeah, but weren't they like lovers? Weren't
they lovers? Allegedly, yes.
Probably.
Strong, yes.
Very,
very, very weak, allegedly. Oh, no, apparently, allegedly, small in lowercase letters, she's a sex pest, and you can't, and a memo went around being don't be left in the same room as Liz Truss. As a man,
he just he just gave up easy. He didn't even put up a fight.
Listen, he
got a job for it.
I mean, he was gonna get a job already, but he's it's like, you know, she's already married, so they live next to each other. He's like, well, at the end of the day, I don't even leave my house for a shape up. She don't care. So
then you have the Tories, right? So you have the Tories going in and do everything, like crashing the economy with Liz Truss and her Truskonomics or whatever the stupidness that she was doing, and then. Now and there's so many things that they were doing, you know, during COVID, how they were giving PPE contracts to their mates. We had 6 billion wasted. We had the bridge that never existed over the Thames, but 54 million went into so there were so many
Nightingale Hospital.
Yeah, but there's so many.
I just want to
go ahead.
emphasize two things that money was wasted on, because Z, please, because you told me about the bridge and I was like,
yeah.
What?
So there was like a garden bridge that was supposed to go over the Thames, and it was just always like, you know, parties and talks about it and whatever. And 54 million, I think it was, that went into this bridge. You see a bridge there? Because I don't see no bridge. Nothing. They got rid of this idea to have the bridge because all of this money was sunk into it. No bridge ever appeared.
I see the Chinese build a train station in a day. Just to give you perspective, they made a train station, and then the tracks linked up the thing in a day.
And this is the thing, right? So we have all of these ways. We have this PPE scandal, which was a scandal. It was a scandal because we had these NHS workers going out to work and they weren't getting the proper protection that they deserved. You want them to turn up when everyone else there's a deadly disease, so stay in your house, but they have to turn up for work and you're not giving them proper protection. Then you're getting your mate that makes bras, arguably the worst, the
opposite of PPE. The opposite of PPE is
bras and whatever. And you're like, oh yeah, all of a sudden they
not like Marks and Spencer's bras, like lacy see-through bras, crotchless panties, like the opposite of PPE.
So and that was like 6 billion. Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Basically, might as well have been.
Yeah. And then they had these things where they would just, because obviously normally when you go out to tender for things, there's like a process. Yeah. There was like, you need it, and I understand, needed to be expedited because of the circumstances, but why are you allowing people to just create companies and all of a sudden they're going to be the people? And again, this is the whole kind of shock doctrine, and when capitalism is at play, people are just going to take advantage of a crisis, and that's what they're going to do. So whilst people are dying...
What you're saying, sorry to cut you right there.
That's okay.
What you're saying is that we as taxpayers was paying the government for them to spend the money or give that money to their friends to create a bridge that didn't exist, and that was like to the tune of 56 million.
It was about 60 mil, and then also our tax money went towards this PPE that just was wasted.
HS2 as well.
Yeah, all of these things. So this is what I'm saying. There's been a series.
I just wanted to make sure that we.
That's why I asked about the budget, because I would theorize that when you're trying to put together a budget, you would be doing the municipal equivalent of looking for change between the sofas and stuff. and saying, here's where we can recover some money, and we need to hit out my man because he still owes us bread.
So prior,
we should. Sorry to cut you quickly. We probably need a Doge in the UK, no?
Department of Government evil, yeah.
And what would be the benefit of that?
To find out where this money's gone.
But we have systems already in place that are supposed to do that. So why would we need Doge to come and do that?
No, I'm not talking the American Doge. I'm talking a British equivalent.
Okay, well, we have stuff like that already. We have a national audit office. We have the Office for Budget Responsibility. We have various bodies.
Doesn't sound like they're doing a great job.
You say that, but so for example, with the budget that we have, that came out in November. So we had a budget in November, and normally they come out in November, and then you have like a spring statement, which is just like a kind of update to the budget, say. So prior to the Labour getting into power, they come and they give you a manifesto, and they're like, we're going to spend a lot of money on this, and it's like supposed to be fully costed or whatever. Now, we know, and everybody that like kind of pays attention to this thing, that they were always going to say, you know what, we know that we said this, but when we're in power, it's like worse than we thought. This is crazy. Like, and everyone was kind of expecting that. So they came in and they were like, guys, guess what? It was worse than we thought. Oh my god! Yeah, we know we said we could do all of these things, but the hole is bigger than we thought it would be. It's like 20 billion or whatever. So that way they kind of try to get a little bit of leeway. We know we said we're going to do this, but we can't really do this because it's so much money. They've wasted so much money. I think the OBR had said, actually, no, your figures are not right. Like the gap is the Office for Budget Responsibility.
Okay, cool.
And there's a few other bodies that kind of feed into this, and they're saying, actually, no, the figures were accurate, or like the spending. So basically they're basing it on what they've been told or what they can evidence that the Tories have spent money on. And, they're saying that losses were hidden or so on and so forth. They're always going to say that, like whether it was Tories to Labour or Labour to Tories, they're always going to say it was so much worse than we thought. We've got to fix it. I think one of the big things, so the budget itself, and I'll kind of get to it, the budget itself wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't like bad. I was like surprised. But the thing that I think is a problem is that Labour are very negative. Like they I know the Democrats are not in power, but if you saw, and I don't necessarily think like this is not a indictment on Kamala or anything like that, whether she was good or bad, but they had a campaign that was galvanizing people, that was kind of trying to, for people that bought into that, it was like hopeful, right? So you felt like things could probably get better. Labour have gone, oh my God, it's so bad. So guys, this is going to be really hard. So no one has anything to hold on to. This country is hard enough as it is. First of all, we have like 7 years of winter, right? And darkness. So like people are struggling. And then you get these guys coming and going, oh my God, everything is worse than we thought it was.
And a new king as well, who was like, hold on.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's
the Prime Minister was making more money than me. Nah, man, you don't have to up my bread. Start charging some people. Your Majesty, you mean the ambulances? Yes, the ambulances. What's going on here, bruv? Man's the king, bruv. Yeah, they got charge the ambulances as well. What's going on here? But
it is hard. It is hard. Like we've been through a lot, like psychologically, and globally people have, but like as a nation as well, with like off the back of COVID, and then we had like inflation. Remember, inflation was like 10, 12, 13, but you go into every day you went into Tesco and like it was a new price on like food. It was just going up, you know?
Started looking at the bread.
Literally, it was like a roulette. It was just like they just had a wheel grinding. So things are hard. Like we've also compounded the impact because of Brexit. So things are just more expensive for us, but your wages are not rising commensurately. So things feel harder. Like a lot of people, and I know there's like this eat the rich, and in this country we have a kind of a bit, for me personally, I think it's the kind of a warped reality of what rich is. So unfortunately, like, you know, most people in this country are on an average salary of like 35k, right? That's the average for the country. It's not a lot of money, right? It's not a lot of money. And so when they see someone on like 80k or 90k, they're like, well, they're the rich. And they're also not necessarily on a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. That's not rich. And arguably, and obviously they probably live in slightly better than someone on 35k, of course. But don't forget, on 80k, you also don't have access to to public funds for like, you don't get any kind of child benefit and you don't get all of these other things that kind of make your life a little bit easier.
And
so
a little bit more tax as well. So,
yeah, and also the tax. So with somebody that's earning 80k is not paying double the tax of a 40k person. They're paying way more than that as a percentage of their salary. So again, we have this kind of warped idea of what rich means and real wealth is. And that isn't to say that people earning a lot shouldn't pay their fair share. I do think that people should, but because everything is so depressed in this country in terms of like salaries and everything like that, we're in this kind of like rut almost, where we've got these high prices, we've got all of these things, we've got these people that have voted Brexit and they're like doubling down, they're like, well, we've got our country back, like that, and the country's a state, and now we've got to blame immigrants now, so we've got to get, do you know what I mean? Like, first of all, it was because we were in Europe, and like now we're out of that, we're like, oh my god, still a state. It must be the immigrants. It's like, you know, it's always going to be someone else, right? And so we have this budget that comes out, and I guess key things for if you are like working person, I think key things would be they have said that they're not going to move the thresholds for like personal income tax until I think it was 2028 actually. So what that means is normally you get like with inflation and you get like more money or whatever, people are likely to get drag, is that even a word? No, there's a thing called fiscal drag, which basically means that we're not going to move the banding, so we're not going to increase like your personal allowance, we're not going to increase the amount but before which you have to start paying tax. And because of that, because people will naturally kind of go up in salary every year, people that possibly weren't paying tax will now start paying tax. People that weren't paying it at a higher rate will now start paying it at a higher rate. So it's a kind of secret, like the governments love this, it's a secret way that they can kind of raise taxes without actually raising any like income tax thresholds or any the actual tax rate. So this is one of the things that they're doing. Another thing that may have an impact on people is that they raised the employer's national insurance. And the reason I say it may have an impact on people because it may impact employers' decision whether they start hiring because the costs are more. Like it's now up 15%. I know, like from where I work, there was a lot of talk about, you know, like the impact it's gonna have, and I'm just like, I mean, it will, like, because where I work, it would be in the millions. It's not my company, by the way. Just like I work for the company. Just in fact, what millions? She's rich. She's
the one that should be paying more.
Exactly, but yeah. So it can have a lot. It can have a big cost, but also these companies are also raising their prices and, you know, like all of these other things. So there are ways that they can absorb it and, you know, ride it out and, you know, do their little magic and offset it. So, I mean, I feel as sorry for them as I feel for people paying VAT on private schools, which I don't.
That is, that is
they're going to be all right. In terms of the budget as well, seems to have been a large emphasis on defence spending. I recall Kier Starmer saying a couple months ago that he is going to increase Britain's defence spending to levels unprecedented since the Cold War.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is mad because I don't remember us being in the Cold War. That wasn't our war. That was Russia and America. So why is he exited up himself to be like, we got to spend some peas? Because we seem to can't be with Russians because we gave them all of Chelsea and Kensington and Chelsea. The football team.
We realised and now we're not sure. And then now Trump's friends with the Russians, we're now not sure again. Like, we're like, are we their friends? Are we their foes?
There's former
like,
KG people in the House of Lords.
Yeah, there are.
So.
And they own our media as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to work or why we've got to pay for, why is that coming out of our money, but that'd be interesting. This Rachel Reeves already cutting disability. So that's another thing.
See, there seems to be a lot of like shadow ways in which they are, because I mean, to your point about companies increasing their costs because of the costs that are being increased that they have to pay, that falls to the consumer.
Yeah.
Which then makes our life more harder when we're trying to buy into these products, or buy products or buy into these services. So these are the sort of things that we, one, need to be aware of, but two, you know, the question I would ask then, because you're from South.
Yeah.
So, you know, South London can be in some spaces a little bit like West London, where you have big houses on one side of the road.
I was seeing where you were going with this. I was like, I'm a very proud South Londoner, so I was just like, watch it.
To be fair, I'm an honorary South Londoner myself, and Yeah, I feel you. Feel it that way. But I say that to say, you know, there can be a bit of a divide between those that have a little bit more and those that don't have much. And in that regard, on the ground, what are you seeing in terms of the budget for the working class people in and around our spaces that we...
I think because when it comes down, I don't know if it's like directly. Well, it will be a kind of trickle down effect of the budget. For example, the decisions that your local authorities are making about, I don't know, your rubbish pickup, for example. Like, are your streets more dirty? Are there fewer pickups for these things? Are they lighting every street lamp, or are they kind of doing every other one? And those little things that you're kind of like, oh, why is that not on? But
pest control used to be a thing that the government did, and now you got to go private.
Yeah, so all of these little things that they kind of start pulling back on because they don't have, or they start putting in more control parking zones in the area to raise more money, or they change the times on them, or, you know, different things like that, which are just ways that they can try and recoup money and get more money in. Those are things that have an impact on people. And I think also just thinking about, like, I live in a new build. It was built in like 2019, and I live in the private where you've purchased the property, and then there was another part that was social housing. It's just really interesting to me because we have a poor gate, so we have a gate that the poor people that live in the social housing, they can't go
I love
through.
that definition.
They don't, and it's like leads into a little. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of crap anyway. It's just like a little bit of a grass bit, but they can't go in. I mean, I let anyone in, so I don't really get and you know, whatever. I'll disrupt the whole thing. But like, it's just interesting. Also, like the divide between, because I speak to anyone, like everyone, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm Jesus or anything, but I just do. Like I'm from a council estate myself, so I don't really like see it like that. But it's just really interesting how I'm in the WhatsApp group for the tenants around that. Bro, first of all, those people worry about nothing. Like, first of all, they worry about every single thing. They hear a noise, they hear a this. Why are you here? If you're going to live in an area like this, like, it's like they want to live in these like edgy areas, but they're trying to round off the edges. Like, you come into this and you this is the thing, and it's not that I'm trying to like glorify any type of violence or anything, because I don't think I live in a particularly violent area, but it's more that, you know, I remember we had some boys hanging around on like a part where it was just like a little play thing for kids, but not when the kids were there, to be fair. Just like later in the evening, they would just hang around because there aren't a lot of things for young kids to do or go. You know what I mean? They were just. Which is
one of the things that have been taken away as part of government initiatives.
100%,
you know what I mean?
right? And so these are the things. So they don't invest on our young people. So these kids were hanging around, and I remember they put in the group that someone had stolen their child's bike right off a balcony. Yeah. So it's not even on the ground floor. This is off a first floor. So I'm like, a child's bike? What do you mean a child's bike? It was a little child's bike, a toddler. So they were like, oh, we think it might be those boys that were there. I was like, first of all, why are like 15 and 16-year-old boys going to climb up a balcony to steal a toddler's bike? Like, make that make sense.
Yeah.
And I reckon they just probably went to the park with the bike and forgot it there. And then they're like, oh my God, where's the bike or whatever. But the way that they were like, oh my God, what are we going to do about this? I was like, sorry, what you're saying is not making sense to me. Why would they climb up like Spider-Man to your balcony to come and get your like, that doesn't need, anyway.
It's likely to be a crackhead more than anything.
Yeah, I don't even think anyone stole it.
Even a crackhead, if they can get to the balcony, they'll probably try and get the TV or something if you get to the balcony. What's a toddler bike going for nowadays?
You know, I mean, I would have probably
the bike's like £40.
A quick story. I would have probably agreed with you before a situation that happened to my mum the other day, where somebody tried to break into her house and instead stole the lead from underneath her windowsill because they got caught. And it was a crackhead. Yeah.
Lead.
They stole lead.
Yeah. And then went to like basically there's like a metal dealer down the road. And we found him.
But one thing about them, they are quite innovative, because I would have never thought of that.
This is the thing. So this is why I say like it
but the bike was plastic though. That's the thing. It
wasn't a lead bag.
It wasn't
and don't get me wrong, we do have like, because we had a problem. It's actually really sad. We had a problem. There's a girl that was a woman that's an addict, and she would live in our bin store. So you know, like when you have the thing where you go into it, and she would be in there, and they were like, you know, oh, she can't live there. And my thing wasn't like, yeah, she can't live there, but more like, I don't want to live in their bins, like, because that's disgusting for her. Like, I wasn't even thinking, like, if she's cold, then I think she needs to be out of the cold, but whatever. So a few times, like, I'd paid for her to go to, there's a hotel, because I live in Camberwell, there's a hotel there. And if I could get her a thing or whatever. But again, like those are things where I growing up, I didn't see that. Like when we were growing up, homeless people were in like Waterloo under Cardboard City. You won't even know this because if you're new to town, you won't even remember. You remember Waterloo underneath
where the skateboard stuff used to be Cardboard City.
Cardboard City.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I've been in London pushing on 19 years now.
Yeah, no, but I think they even got before. Yeah, it was even before that. Yeah, but and I remember because I remember in 2009 when I went to live in Paris, there were loads of people on the street there, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, all these people on the street, like it was crazy. And now that's normal for us. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of what we've accepted.
There's parts of Manchester that are like LA, you know.
Oh, it's crazy.
There's parts of Manchester that are like LA, and I think LA is a place I don't think people have the slightest clue about the depth of the poverty that's there. Like LA is one of these places that's very similar to like somewhere like Melbourne, where it's like people go, oh, it's beautiful, it's beautiful. If you got money, it's beautiful. If you don't have money, it is stress. Especially someone like LA. Oh man, like because I mean America, and I think you know one of the reasons why is that in the UK is that we're seeing not just like the homeless crisis, but it's something that's conflated with a healthcare crisis.
Yeah,
and that people are struggling with mental health and having a lack of access to resources, and waiting lists are too long, and disabilities being cut, and people that aren't able to make ends meet there find themselves having to find alternate arrangements. And then when that falls through, then they might have to be in their car, then they're on the street. And, you know, obviously there's a large amount of people are ex-service people as well, like veterans. And,
but I think there's also a cultural shift in that I remember growing up in Britain being very proud of being like a tolerant nation. Like that was their thing. And now we're almost really proud of being intolerant. And like this whole kind of individualism that's coming to the surface. Like we need to take care of this and our own and whatever. And the kind of boundary between being one of our own and being an other is very flimsy, and it's actually very like ambiguous. You know, you can slip outside of the community for whatever it is.
When you say the community,
so I mean, and when I say community, I mean if you think about like the British community or whatever, I think it's very. I mean, for people of colour, it's always going to be fragile and whimsical anyway, right? And I think we kind of understand that we toe that line. But I think also there's now, and maybe I was just too young to notice it before, but now I'm noticing people of colour othering other people as well. So like, you know, where their grandparents were treated, they were like, well, now it's time for them to treat other people like that, other people that are coming in and trying to make their way. And I think that's
a
quite
difficult
concerning
subject. And let's get onto that. I want to pick some bones out of that, what you just said.
Okay.
But let's get back to the budget. And I think for me, basically, what I would like to know is, I'm underground, I'm a normal guy working, and you've covered some of this, but to kind of complete that point, what is it that I need to be looking out for, and how do I circumvent any negative impacts as far as the budget is, this year's budget is concerned?
So I think it depends what you're doing. I think if circumnavigating or trying to get around things, I think there isn't a lot of things that you can do. Arts for more money if you're working, like arts just to get more money. Also, it depends where you are in terms of threshold. So like if you're, so when you get to like 100,000, and I'm sure you're there, but when you get to like, when you get to 100K, you start to lose your personal allowance as well. And so it's like a really weird time between like 120 to 100 and whatever. Think about using a pension and other ways to kind of like take off basically using a pension as a way to maximize your banding and hold on to that, and those are things that you can if you're unsure.
An ISA, for example.
Yeah, but no, if you take, so basically what happens when you put money into a pension, it expands your banding, if that makes sense. So say you're on 40K, I think. Because I'm so rich, I don't know what the bandings are. But like when you start paying a higher rate tax, I think it's around 40K.
It's 50.
Is it 50?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What about the rest of us, milady?
I don't know what you poppos are doing.
What about the rest of us, milady? You can explain.
No, but so 50, let's say it's 50. It doesn't matter. The principle's the same. If you're on 50K and so like you're kind of at that barrier, what you can do is say you got like a pay rise of like 55 or whatever, and you're like, I don't want to pay pay like the higher rate of tax. If you put the money into a pension, then it expands your thing and then you don't pay tax on that. So you wouldn't pay, so you put like all of that into a pension.
Right.
So if you wanted to work it out, and it's like, because whenever I say stuff like this, people are like, oh, what did you say? Just go onto like ChatGPT and put in like what you're earning, what you're going to get, and like how much should I put in a pension to make it tax efficient, and it will lay out the calculation for you and it will tell you. So like so people need to start using these things for like good and not evil. Okay,
so what is the, if the threshold is 50 and you get 55, like you get put up to 55K.
So that 5 may be taxed at the higher rate, and you're like, I don't want to do that, but I want to put more money in my pension. So if you put all of it in your pension, then it won't be, you'll get that money back.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other ways that you can circumvent, like?
Not really. I mean, I'm going to be honest. This is going to sound really like awful, but like that's not a lot of money. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I think when you can do really tax efficient things is when you've got a bit more money. Do you know what I mean?
And the reason why I say that, and I do understand what you're saying when it comes to when you say it's not a lot of money, because it isn't really. But for me, I'm thinking like, when you do, and we've all had these times when you go to Tesco's or you go to Sainsbury's and you're like, well, I want to get 4 boxes of fish fingers rather than 2. You know what I mean? And that little extra will enable you to do things like that. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking like, if there's ways in which it would be more efficient from a tax perspective.
You know what? For me, I think the thing that people should try and do, and I think this because a lot of people, I think most people don't even have like savings of £1,000 or something I was reading, is that they should maximise using their ISA.
Yeah.
Because it's tax-free and you can have the cash one or the stocks and shares or whatever it is, depending on your risk appetite. But I think things like that, when you've got tax-free allowances, I think there's like a lifetime ISA or one, you know, like these things, those are the things that you can do. And I think people need to encourage saving. I think like having really good discipline in that way, and things like, so this is not an advertisement, but I do use it myself. Moneybox is really good, where it does roundups, and then you can set it to like take a certain amount of money every week or every month or whatever, and it puts it in and it can invest it in a general investment account for you, or they do ISAs as well. But then it's like things that you don't necessarily need to think about. And that obviously depends on how people are doing their personal budgeting and whether they can afford to have these amounts going out. But I think also another thing is, if you can, and it is difficult, because I know like, in my emails every month for the last year, they're telling me, oh, well, prices are going up. Oh, prices are going up. And the prices are going up by 20%, you know. It's like, brother, my salary didn't go up by 20%. Everything's going up by bare money. But so I know it's difficult. But if you can still survive on your salary and you get an increase, don't spend the increase. Like, you don't need to keep living up to this, like, extended thing. Like, put that money away.
That's an important point, because I feel like there's a quote or a saying that I heard some years ago, basically people being broke on a higher level, and that's for people that, you know, incrementally spend more the more that they earn, and you don't necessarily need to do that. And I think as well, one strategy that I've definitely employed is always seeking ways to spend less. Now that sounds like just a minor thing, but literally we don't have 24 hours a day watching 4 streaming platforms, and some people might do, but I definitely don't. You know what I mean? So in that regard, you know, there's only a few things that I actually do pay for in terms of subscription services and things like that. I notice companies are really getting smart and trying to like sell you one part of the product and then the other part comes on subscription. But even in that, you can mitigate and circumvent certain ways in which you spend your money, so you can avoid having these massive monthly outgoings. You know, I
agree. I think all of those things add up, and I think it's really prudent if every 6 months you take time and you like just take your bank statement and be like, what the hell is this? And you know, like, and start going and cancelling things, because you'll find there's things
a lot of them will renew themselves as well. It's like a VPN or some kind of add-on for like,
and you're not even realizing like you finished the free trial and then now you're locked in for the year or whatever. Go and cancel it now, because it means at the end of the year it won't auto renew, and those kind of things are really important, because those little pennies and things like that, they add up. And so I think that people really. So for me, for example, I had a car which I loved, but I got rid of it last year because I was like, I actually don't need a car. I live very close to the centre of London. My children are big now, so they don't need, you know, like, so I don't need to do all of these things. And that's why I was like, Dane, can you come and collect me? I just have friends with cars now. But like, again, thinking about whether you need that, I use Zipcar as well sometimes and whatever. And I think, yes, it's nice to have a car and to have the convenience of it, but it's such a big cost, especially now living in London. It's
live in London
cost.
because now they're extending ULEZ. So if your car's not ULEZ friendly, you're paying just for the car to sit on pavement, plus congestion charge, plus...
So what is
charge?
ULEZ? Just covering the ULEZ thing, because I've never had to engage with ULEZ. So
most people don't, to be fair.
Most people don't, but there are some people who, if their cars...
What's the year? Do we know what the year is?
I think I don't know, but I think it's an older car and what the type of petrol and stuff like that.
Now I'm just wanting to, because I don't want it to creep up on me, because I've never had to.
No, it's not a thing like that. If your car is ULEZ compliant, it just is ULEZ compliant, so it's fine.
Yeah, true.
Because I had a diesel and it was ULEZ compliant, so yeah.
Cool.
Just dusty cars of white van men, white van men.
Yeah.
Mainly.
Yeah. So moving on to the other things, like small business owners.
Yeah.
Of which I belong to that community.
Okay.
To some.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm trying out. Yeah, man. You know what I was saying to because I was with my cousin and my sister the other day, and a circle of people, and all of those people are like quite high-end earners, and they were all moaning about taxes and blah 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 and how things are and stuff. And as I said to them, and I want to see if you agree with this statement, actually, the best way, and in my opinion the only way really, is to have some sort of a business or be able to employ yourself in some sort of a way, to kind of, and I say circumvent, like as in to say like I'm trying to avoid, because there's tax evasion is the one that's illegal.
Yeah.
So I am definitely trying to avoid paying too many taxes. Yeah. And I find to extract some value and get my business to pay for some of the niceties of life, that is the way in which I've been able to achieve that.
Yeah, I think, first of all, because I'm sure that you're not telling me that you're using business income to pay for your personal expenses. That's not what you're telling me, obviously. But what I would say is you can earn a really good salary in this country, depending on what you're doing. Most people don't, so I'm like very cognizant of the fact. But there are people that are earning good money. They get good bonuses and whatever. And yes, they do pay a lot of tax, but both relatively and, to be fair, objectively, they're doing okay. They're doing okay. They're not, they may not feel as rich as they could do, but they're doing okay. So I do think that the idea that everybody needs to have a business, I think is false. I think because I think many people won't make it. That's just the way it is. They won't make it. I think it's very hard to run your own business. I think there's discipline, there's passion, there's a lot, and there's luck that comes into it. And so it's not for the weak, because it's not a 9 to 5. You don't shut off at 5 o'clock. You still have to keep going, sometimes 24 hours a day. And so a lot of people do it as a way to kind of escape paying certain taxes, or they'll be like, oh, you know what, my expenses are, I can take them from my income directly. I don't need to wait for my net money to come through. But I think there's a lot that come through. There's a lot of things that come with it, and not a lot of people are going to make it to the levels that have really kind of, like
that makes it worth
like I'm breaded, you know what I mean? Like I'm really doing what I need to do. So I feel like there's a big hustle culture, and I'm really against hustle culture. Yeah, so you know what it is, because I think that for someone that works in finance, it's going to sound really ridiculous, because I actually think that we need to spend more time as a community, like connecting with other people. I think what we're doing more and more, because like we have for our phones and iPads and all of these things, messages coming in about consumerism and buy this and go here, and with Instagram and what you're supposed to look like and whatever. We're spending so much time like hyper fixating on all of these things that you need to hustle and have 7 jobs because look, this person, do you know what I mean? Like this person's got a Bentley and they're 5 years old and all of this kind of foolishness. And I'm like, okay, but I sometimes just want to go to the park with my friends and do like a sports day and stuff like that. And like all of those things are really cool too. And I don't need to be killing myself for what? Like for what am I doing that for? Because to be honest with you, even if one of the things that I know is high earners in this country, especially like black people, I won't speak about other people of color, but black people I know that are high earners, because they can be so few and far between, and especially if you've come from like a more working class background and you still have friends that are from that working class background that probably aren't earning as much as you. It's actually kind of lonely because it's kind of like, oh, I want to go on holiday, but like they can't afford it. Like, do you know what I mean? And my brethren can't afford it, and we can't afford to do all of these things and whatever. So whilst that's great and it means that you can live really comfortably and maybe help out your friends or whoever when you need to, I do think that we're kind of got this hyper fixation with I need to get more and more money, and it's like, okay, well, how much is going to be enough? And I'm not suggesting that. I'm not like, don't get me, I'm not romanticizing poverty at all. Like, not at all.
Can I ask well? Sorry to cut in as well, Z. Do you think that there is an element, because I theorized before that around this time where we kind of beginning to experience the austerity, if you look at maybe the last 14 years, that there's been a lot of suggestion that people are making more money and there is an opportunity to make more money. And I'm not sure if the two ideas kind of coexist, because I've seen like more of like the Dubai culture, consumption culture, and I feel like, is it because people are like almost resolved the fact I'm never going to be able to afford a house? So
maybe.
So instead of saving the money towards a house, I can just go on a couple more holidays this year and eat in a few nicer places.
And I don't disagree with that, because I'm like, you know, I'm not one of those people that were like, oh, if they're poor, why have they got a like widescreen TV or whatever? I'm like, well, what, they're going to be poor and miserable? Fuck, like, let them watch TV. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't fucking care.
You need them to buy the strippiness that you're selling to them anyway.
There you go. Exactly. How else are they going to watch your stupid adverts? But like, I think that there's also, I don't know, I almost think there's like stuff more nefarious, and we've got this like austerity thing or whatever, and then there's like coupled with this apparent wealth, because I don't necessarily think that all these people are living soft life like they say, or whatever, but it's also then now I can blame you for your poverty, because actually if all of these people are, look how great everyone else is living, if they're living great, then you're the reason that you're poor.
A lot of these people, do you know what I mean? Are like basically living a lie.
No, I know. I mean? And so we're all perpetuating this lie. It's like we're all acting and we're all pretending that we're all doing so well and we've got so much money, and don't forget, you can get like cheap flights even to Dubai. Like, you get it at the right time and you can get you know, do all of
like
these
a Benidorm style package holiday.
Yeah.
Listen, going abroad sometimes, and most cases, is cheaper than buying a train ticket from London to Newcastle.
It's cheaper to fly to Europe, and once you get there, you can just move on, functioning trains.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, you're absolutely right. I feel like there is ways in which we can do these things. I mean, even when you talk about soft life or living big life, and everyone's like in Dubai, you know what I mean? It's like, I think we need to stop romanticizing, in my opinion, that kind of lifestyle. And I really love what you said about, you know, going to the park and playing sports day. Like, them ideas are sick and they're cost efficient and whatnot. Where I would say it's a little bit difficult for the men within our community is that I always say life, society is not kind on men in general.
Okay.
But then black men even more so. And we'll discuss some stats later about...
what do you mean by that when you say it's not kind on men?
So the way that life is set up in regards to everything from when you start going to school, the education system, everything seems to be against you. And this wasn't something that I noticed when I was younger. This is just something that I noticed when I got older. Like, but I didn't realize, I didn't have the maturity to understand the difference between how my female counterparts were being treated and dealt with in society and in education and in the workplace and so forth and so on, that I do now. And I've realised that incremental difference has allowed there to be a misbalance where females are afforded certain positions incrementally. So as you're rising up the chain, they're getting a little bit more than what we as black Caribbean men in particular, because we had this conversation last week, are getting. So then I think it contributes somewhat to our underperformance within society. And then we have what we have today, where a lot of black women are going on social media and venting their frustrations with Afro-Caribbean men in particular, but more widely black men in general, and their underperformance from a financial point of view, not being able to attain to certain levels of wealth. You know, man's got to earn this amount of money to get me to go out on a day and all that type of thing. So it's like, I think when we go back to the hustle culture, I think no matter what your hustle is, and I'm definitely not kind of saying go out there and do anything nefarious or illegal, but I would say, like, if you can find yourself a legal hustle, then you'll be better off long term. Even from a small perspective, because I remember there was cases, there was a space in which, yes, I've always had a business outside of my main job, and it wasn't generating. There was, good months, bad months, good quarters, bad quarters, and then you get to a space where you're doing better. You know what I mean? But I always found that I was more fulfilled having that, regardless to how good or bad I was doing. But whereas women, it's not necessarily that important, in my opinion, to have that sort of a hustle mentality. Now, some women, yes, if that's what your bag is, go and do that. You get me? But in terms of like saying, okay, you personally don't really agree with hustle culture, I think it's more important for us as men than it is for women. And that might sound how it sounds, but that's just my...
No, and I think that's valid if you think that. I think that... So I'll kind of coming back to what you were saying, where you were talking about like women going on the internet and talking about like men earning a certain amount or funny thing, which I always find really funny. And the reason I find it funny is because it's something that I largely see on the internet. So it's not reflected in my real life. I know a lot of my friends that are with very broke men. Okay. So I don't know who these like very picky, do you know what I mean? And have like supported them. And do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know where these like really picky, and I feel like this is again like an IG thing. Like it's like an Instagram thing with a lot of young girls coming in with like, and young men have it as well, but young girls may be voicing these really unrealistic expectations because they go to their club and they get bottle service, and just because they're the loudest voice, I think they're also in the minority.
I feel like it's like when people are like, I need a man with a six pack, and it's like,
and like, no, they never have a man with a six pack. So I feel like that also is probably something to reflect on as like how you're consuming the media that's coming, because I'm telling you, I don't know anyone that's with someone that's got a lot of money.
And so then,
do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's true.
Well, it's funny you say it, because
but before we get there, I do just want to ask this question, and let's get in and out of this question so we can move on to this particular situation. For small business owners, what are we looking for? What are we trying to be aware of?
I think small business owners, you just need to be aware of the taxes that would have implications for you. So the national insurance thing will and won't. Obviously, if you're employing people, it could do. They have also increased the employment allowance. So that's like the allowance, that the threshold above which you kind of pay it or whatever. So it was 5,000, it's gone to 10,000. They've got, I think, capital. So the business assets disposal relief is changing. It's gone to 14%, and it soon will be in line with capital gain. So if you wanted to sell certain business assets before you had relief that was available, that you won't. On the contrary, they've got like green relief. So if you've bought certain products that are deemed to be green, you'll get allowance on those. You will still have an annual investment allowance that is available. Again, that's for capital allowances. So capital purchases can still. So I think just think about those things. I think they've kept the corporation tax the same for under like 250,000. So again, if you're a small business, that could likely be you. For me, I wouldn't. It sounds really... The budget was quite meh, I think, in terms of that. There wasn't any big thing unless you're like a farmer, then go and, whatever. But... Becky. Yeah. Anyway, but there you go. But like, the thing I would keep an eye on is... inflation and interest rates at the moment. I think those are the biggest things, because I think when it comes to inflation is inflation, but with interest rates, again, it's how much the cost of capital is, how much the cost of borrowing is, and that will have an immediate impact if you need to access money for whatever reason, if you're looking for investors and those kind of things. All of those things have an impact. So whilst the budget in and of itself wasn't great, it wasn't a fanfare, but it wasn't like totally awful, the ongoing things like this stuff with Doge and these tariffs and all of these things, those will have an impact, especially if you have an actual product that you're importing or you're trying to sell in another country. Those will have a knock-on impact, and especially if Trump gets this trade war where everyone starts kicking off and putting up tariffs here, there, and everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, just chaos. Those things will have a direct impact on businesses. Yeah. So I think more pressing than the things that have just kind of come out and they're in place would be where interest rates are going, what inflation looks like, and what's going on with this trade war. Because, I mean, obviously, if you're giving a service, it's not as impacted if your business is a service business. But a lot of people do things like sell clothing or sell and where do they come from? They come from other countries. So it could be a good thing. It could be that China's like, well, I'm going to screw over the US and help everywhere else. Or it could be a bad thing. Or your market could be in the US, which means it's now more expensive for you to sell them. Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah.
Okay. A lot of things to consider. I mean, yeah. I'm in a bit of a transition period at the minute. But anyway, that's a personal thing. Moving on quickly.